We'll probably know if we don't know already, I guess, and anytime this afternoon, the next day or two, whatever it is. If the women's NCAA championship game ended up with a larger viewership than the men's championship game. But if the trend follows, and it probably does, the answer is going to be yes or really, really close. And that's why I'm going to work in. Get ready for it. That's why I'm going to work in and use Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan, and Caitlin Clark to make a point. So the numbers for the women's championship game ended up at viewership numbers at 18.7 million viewers. You do know the way this works. Is it an exact science? No, but it's not bad. And that is you take a sampling, there'll be a sample size of whatever, 5,000, 10,000, whatever data you get back, and you project that to the entire TV universe, which is, every single household. So you end up with 18.7 million, which is the biggest number in women's basketball history. It just followed consecutive weeks of the biggest viewership going from, last year, I think it was at 9. Then there was the grade 8 final that went to 12, then 14, and then ends up at 18, almost 19 million for the final. Is that going to be bigger than the men's? Yeah, it probably is. Here's why I can say it probably is. And there's a point to all of this. So far, the men's tournament, for example, the semifinals, both of those games averaged 12.84 million viewers. And it's not a terrible number. They've been going down. Remember some of these numbers when I gave you the other numbers over time. UConn, Alabama averaged 14.18 million. Purdue, NC State averaged 11.45 million. That's down 12%. Those numbers are all down. They've been going down for quite some time. There's a number of reasons for that. But the women's game spiked dramatically. Okay, so if and when the women's championship generates, because you can see it coming. I think a lot of you are going to react the same way. When that number is bigger, the viewership is bigger than the men's championship game. I'm going to tell you what not to say. Don't say the women's game is now as big or bigger than the men's, because it's not. That's not accurate. You're looking at it the wrong way. It's not going to be politically correct, but you're looking at it the wrong way. Oh, yeah, that game will have drawn a bigger audience than the men's final, and that's significant, no doubt. But you can't say the women's game, because the men's game overall, you take an entire season, you take the tournament itself, is going to generate a much larger audience. This is why I say Americans are not sports fans. We're fans of stars. We're fans of drama. We're fans of what we think are good versus bad. We're fans of the drama. So it's not even close. Caitlin Clark of Iowa is a bigger draw than UConn versus Purdue, or UConn versus Alabama, or UConn versus anybody, and they're one of the most dominant. They've been on one of the most dominant 2-year runs in basketball history. Their margin of victory total is 140. You can make a numerical case. The UConn men who won the championship last night have had the most dominant run in college basketball history. But it's going to be a smaller number than Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is the biggest draw in college basketball. Not the team that's the most dominant. Not the team that has had arguably the best run in college basketball history. I'm not even sure it's arguable. They're not as big as Caitlin Clark. If she's not playing, by the way, the number in college basketball, women's college basketball, drops by almost half. So it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think people know what's going to happen. There's going to be this cheering sound or this booing sound, and it's going to be, well, look at this, everyone. Look how much bigger the women's game is, or look where the men's game is. And no, that's the wrong way to look at it. It is. So let me give you the weird stars of TV. The most viewed game of all time, the most viewed college basketball game of all time, and it's not even close. It's 1979. It's not even close. Think about these games. All right, here are the 7 most watched college basketball games of all time. Look at the time frame and then think about what was included in all of them. Then we're going to have to talk about Nancy Kerrigan and Tonya Harding. And who shot JR, by the way. Number 7, 1985, Villanova, Georgetown, $31.23 million. Number 6, 1987, Indiana versus Syracuse, $32 million. 1983 is number 5, NC State versus Houston, $32 million. 1994, remember the number now is at 12. It's at 12. Number 4, 1994 NCAA Championship, Arkansas v. Duke, $32.7 million. Number 3, 1993 Championship, North Carolina versus Michigan, had $32.9 million. Second most viewed game of all time is 1992, Duke v. Michigan, $34 million. And the most watched game of all time is Michigan State versus Indiana State. Not exactly big market East Coast programs, right? $35.1 million. It's the most ever. The score, it was a bad game. It wasn't even a very well played game. It was 75-64. That's the most viewed college basketball game of all time. Now, why do you think that is? That would be, the story of that by itself is pretty remarkable. That would have been Magic Johnson v. Larry Bird. There. No, it was Michigan State versus Indiana State. No, it wasn't. It was Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. That's sort of Caitlin Clark of 1979. Exact same setup. Exact same scenario. The men's game doesn't have a star. At that time, those were the 2 biggest stars. Now, that game was significant. Those 2 guys are significant. One, because you could argue it was the single most important, I would say, single most important college sporting event on TV. It made the NCAA tournament. Those 2 guys, those 2 legendary players, 2 of the greatest of all time, they not only made the NCAA tournament what it is today. Now, you can say that Caitlin Clark's done the same thing for the women's side. Sure, okay. But they made it. And then they turned around and saved the NBA. Because the NBA had no numbers until they came along. Now, what's the point to all this? Stars and drama drive the numbers. Stars and drama drive the numbers. You take Caitlin Clark out, you're going to have 7, 8, 9 million viewers. You get UConn. I mean, UConn has no stars. It has no drama. It's not going to drive a big number. So, I give you the most watched, now listen closely, everyone, the most watched non-Super Bowl sporting event ever. It happens to be the 4th most watched non-Super Bowl TV show or moment of all time. But, Jeff, it's about the sports. Nope, not even close. Now, I'm not saying Caitlin Clark isn't a great basketball player. I mean, she's the Tiger Woods of her sport. I mean, it's what draws people there. Not the teams, not the game. It's the stars. But when you get real drama and stars, it gets even better. The most watched non-Super Bowl TV events ever also includes at number 4 the most watched non-Super Bowl sporting event. I don't call it sport. You might. Sporting event ever. The most watched non-Super Bowl TV show of all time would be the MASH final episode that had a viewership of 105.9 million. Number 2 was Dallas, 1980. Number 3, 1977. You want to guess? That would be Roots, the finale. Okay, half of all households was watching that. Number 4, not far behind, 49% of all television households, which is 49% of every house in the United States, was watching the ladies figure skating short program. That's what they're watching. Why? Because all of you know the ladies short program. You're really experts on that. I can't think of anything I'd rather not watch. None of you know what that's about. Jeff, how does this tie into Caitlin Clark? Exactly the same way it ties into Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. The 1994 women's ladies figure skating short program. I don't even know what's the difference between short or long, whatever. Well, what did this feature? What was so great about this? Great skating? No. Americans became, experts on skating? No. I don't know, the U.S. versus the Russians? No. I give you one person getting clubbed in the knee by a goon from the other person. Nancy Kerrigan v. Tonya Harding is the most watched non-Super Bowl sporting event of all time, if you want to call it sport. That's what drives the big numbers. That's what Caitlin Clark, in a weird way, I know it's not comfortable. I know. Caitlin Clark, Nancy Kerrigan, Tonya Harding, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, all the same formula. It's all the same formula. Now, the numbers have been cut in half over time of viewership, period, because those were the days of far fewer TV channels. I mean, what do we have, 3 or 4? You had nowhere else to go. I mean, so naturally, audience sizes outside of the Super Bowl have been sliced up. So they're going to go down regardless. But let that sink in. Biggest moment in women's basketball history, Caitlin Clark. Biggest moment in a non-Super Bowl sporting event, your favorite, Tonya Harding v. Nancy Kerrigan. Didn't somebody cry? I'm trying to remember now. There was somebody sobbing. She got clubbed in the knee, and then somebody's shoelace came untied. It was the perfect American moment. It was dumb. It was a bunch of fighting. It had a little bit of criminal element, and it had a lot of crying with makeup. It was, you can't script out a better moment to win over the American viewer. So what else is on this list? It was MASH finale, which was weird. Dallas Who Shot JR, Roots finale, 1977, Winter Olympics ladies figure skating short program, Gone with the Wind, 1976 telecasts, had 48% of all TV households. The day after, 1983, was that show about post-nuclear war or something like that? The Fugitive final episode, part 2, 1967. And Cheers, the final episode, which was terrible, One for the Road, 1993. That was 46% of all TV households. So there you have it. You want to win in the TV business. You want to win in the media business. Get some drama, get a star.